Hi, folks. Thanks so much for sticking with us here on Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. As we mentioned before we took our quick break, we are going to be talking about some animal welfare topics here on the stream right now. And I know that we talk a lot about fostering and adopting, particularly as we get into the summertime months, because we just tend to see a lot of intakes at the municipal shelters in our area and beyond during that time of year. But I think another key element that we don't talk about enough, the educational elements, the medical care, and what sort of services and support is out there in the community for folks who maybe need a little bit of help or guidance on that front. So right now we have Shelly Moore joining us with Humane Society of Charlotte. Thank you so much for being with us here, Shelly.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat about what y'all are doing over at Humane Society of Charlotte. I've been over to the facility a couple of times now. In fact, I had a foster who was taken into your system, if you will, and adopted out of there. And more recently got a tour of all of the different areas around your location. And I mean, it's what a spectacular facility you have. Maybe let's start with a chat about how that was all funded, because that was really a grassroots support, if you will.
Yeah, it was a pretty big project, the first time it's ever been done in this community. The facility that we operated before over on Toomey Avenue is owned by the city of Charlotte. So they leased us that building for $1 a year, which was very generous. But obviously it's outdated and we outgrew it, and we knew that eventually we wanted to have our own space that we can develop to really serve the community with what the needs were now, not 30, 40 years ago. Yeah. So this project, well, actually they hired me back in 2010 to build it. And when I got here, I was like, oh, we got a lot of work to do. So it took about 6 years before we could actually start that project. And the whole vision for that project was that we didn't want people to feel that they were in an animal shelter. We wanted it to feel like a community center, because so many times I hear, oh, I can't go there, it's too sad, or, you know, I don't want to see. But while you experienced it in the building,
yeah,
we really wanted it to have a different feel.
It feels like a pet hotel. I mean, the pets there look happy and content and serene, as opposed to a municipal shelter where we understand the resources are more limited. And they do have dogs who might be looking at each other across, you know, kennels, which can add to stress. I've been to your facility a couple times now, and the dogs there, the cats there, they seem peaceful, just like they're not disturbed by each other and they're not disturbed by folks who come in and look at them.
Well, we've learned so much in just the basics of animal sheltering, how they're housed and how they're designed. And, you know, the shelters of decades ago are not anything like the shelters you see now, and really it's based on what services are provided to the community. Yeah. Today's an interesting fact. Today is our 4th anniversary of opening the doors at the new building.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yep. So that was pretty exciting. It's hard to believe we've been in there 4 years. But like you mentioned before, that project, a lot of people don't understand that we are an independent 501c3 nonprofit. We do not get any funding from the government. We don't get a lot of grant money. If we do, it's for restricted projects. So our funding model is built around individual giving. Mm-hmm. And we have some service revenue, but it does not cover it, you know, totally the expenses that it costs to operate our programs. So that capital campaign wrapped up about 5 years ago. It was a $15 million campaign that was funded pretty much solely by just individuals like you and me, that care about animals. And you know, as a CEO, I love that fundraising model because it allows you to develop really deep relationships with your donors. Yeah. And you really get to know them, and they're there for you, and they understand what the organization's going through. And the downside is very labor intensive, as you can imagine, to raise money required not just to build a space, but for operating every year.
Yeah. Well, speaking of operating, I mean, I feel like I counted more than a handful of different programs that y'all run out of that facility. And I mentioned the fact that it's important for folks to know that this exists in the community because there are so many different factors that go into putting animals into forever homes and keeping animals in forever homes. And I think we do talk a lot about the adopting and fostering, element when it comes to capacity. But, I've spoken to Melissa Nicely over at Charlotte Mecklenburg Animal Care and Control, so it's a municipal shelter. And time and again, I always ask her, because they're constantly always putting out like the urgent alert, we're full, we're at capacity, we're over capacity. Like, what's going on here? Because there was like a golden era, I want to say, around pandemic, where everyone wanted a pup at home or a cat at home to keep them company. Folks started returning to the office. Things got a little bit different with the trends. She mentioned more recently to me that the economy could be playing a role, she thinks. And so I think there's for folks who are familiar with some of our segments here, maybe a where's the money, reason behind why we're seeing some animals being returned to the shelter or going into the shelter. But y'all have a lot of programs, I think, that could help with some of the reasons we're seeing animals being brought to the shelter.
Yeah, well, that's a really important point that you bring up, because sheltering has changed significantly since COVID. And we are seeing more overcrowded shelters, and it's not just here in Charlotte. We're seeing it throughout the country. And I think something that contributed to that was the way that municipal and government organizations operated during COVID, during the shutdown, where there weren't a lot of people or animals in the building. Organizations relied on the community to help be a part of solving that problem with the animal. So I think a lot of that has retained. Organizations like that model. They felt like they could save more animals that way. What's happening with the overcrowding is there is more demand for intake. However, animals are being housed longer too.
Yeah.
So I do think, there's so much pressure on government organizations to try to save every single animal that comes through their doors, but the reality is some of them aren't okay. Either because of a bad health prognosis or a community safety.
Yeah, behavioral concerns,
Yeah, so I think that adds to the numbers in buildings, is just the philosophy around managing your animal populations has changed. The other thing that we've seen is there's a lot of assumptions that there's a lot of returns from COVID adoptions. We've not seen that data or that research.
Okay.
We are seeing it more tied to economics.
Economics.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, one of the things that they track at the shelter, I know, is like dogs or cats that come in from evictions. And there was a period of time, and I haven't checked, I would say within the last few months, but I would say in the last couple of years, Melissa over at Charmac had told me she was seeing more pups and, creatures coming in because of evictions. I'm sure there are other things too, like can't afford medical care, can't afford spay neuter, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. And I guess one way you can look at the work that we do is we focus more on the prevention side than the reactive side.
Yeah.
So we're trying to keep pets with their people. We feel like that animal is best set up to stay in their home environment, of course, unless there's an issue there, and then there's other options there. But a lot of people just don't know that the help is out there.
Yeah.
So we did not, ironically, when we designed this building, we did not design a pet help center because we weren't seeing what we're seeing now pre-COVID, and it was designed pre-COVID. So now what we're seeing is a huge demand for crisis support.
Wow.
I looked at last week's data. We had over 100 people just walk through the door in the pet help center that need help. And they're looking for pet food assistance, they're looking for veterinary assistance, they're looking for behavior and training, they're looking to surrender their pet. That's normally how it starts.
Yeah.
Someone shows up and they say, I can't keep my animal because of XYZ.
Yeah.
And then our pet help counselors try to solve those XYZs with them and try to keep that pet in the home. Of course, if they can't, then we look at it for intake. But it's really about keeping those pets out of the building and with their people. And it's temporary support. It's usually people, like I said, that are experiencing crisis, either an eviction or a domestic situation, or just moving for a job, moving into a new apartment that requires a pet deposit they can't pay.
Yeah.
We can support them with a pet deposit. We have a food bank. We do operate a public veterinary clinic out of the shelter, and we focus on, once again, preventive medicine. So we're not doing sick calls, but you can get your vaccines, you can get your blood work done annually, your heartworm test done, and of course spay neuter, which is so critical and at the heart of really who we are.
Yeah.
Our founder was kind of a pioneer and had the vision of a high quality, low cost, high volume clinic here in Charlotte, and that was not even happening on this side of the country. It was only in California.
Yeah.
And Humane Society of Charlotte opened the first high volume spay neuter clinic in the Southeast, so that's been part of us for a long time, that we'll continue to do.
I actually got to see some of that in action during my last visit over to your facility, and I believe, it was whoever was on staff that time, that vet had multiple pets that they were doing the spay and neuter on, and I felt like, what a revelation, because coming from the background of volunteering at the municipal shelter, I know, at least as of last check, there were, I don't want to say there's a backlog of spay and neuter. So like if you get a pet you adopt out of the shelter, usually you're supposed to have that pet come to you spay neutered. They're trying to really, really fast to keep up with making sure that all the animals are getting that spay neuter appointment after they get adopted or before they go out to an adoptee.
Yeah, one of the big crises in animal welfare over the past few years is access to veterinarians and vet techs. It was very, very hard to find veterinarians for a period of time. Now that's gotten better. We have 4 doctors on staff, 2 do surgery, 1 does wellness, and then 1 does our shelter animals and foster animals. Both of our surgeons are trained and very proficient in high volume, high quality surgery. So they can do 25 to 30 animals a day, which certainly helps. But now we're seeing vet techs are very in demand and hard. So that plays into length of stay, how long they're in the building. The longer they stay, their behavior can deteriorate due to, being confined.
Yeah.
And even though they're walked 2 and 3 times a day,
It can be tough.
it still is difficult.
Yeah.
We want that to be as short as possible. But you're right, the spay neuter, access to spay neuter does slow it down.
So for folks who feel like, I have a pet, I'm kind of in a tough spot, I want to hold on to this pet, what would you recommend they do? Could they come straight to your facility? They give you a call? How does that work?
So if you go on our website, humanecharlotte.org, there's a whole section on there if you need help. And there's FAQs on how you go about the process. There's also resources there. We list veterinarians that we know that will work with people that are in crisis, low-cost trainers to help with behavior. We also have those services at HSC. We have dog training classes. We have one-on-one consults for behavior and training. And then we have the medical side too. The other thing that I think has contributed somewhat to the increase in the need to surrender pets is that during COVID, when these pets were adopted, people were living at home. So those animals were with their people really 24/7 while they were confined. And now people are going back to the office. We're seeing a shift in how people work. And I think now it's starting to become visible that these animals didn't receive the same kind of experience as someone that worked in an office all day. So we are seeing some of that, and that a lot of it's just counseling, access to training and, ways, tips on how to leave your pet for a period of time where you go to work and things like that, because they didn't have to deal with it.
Right. I mean, I even see it with, our pups at home. If, for example, let's just say I have a few days off, how they behave when I return back to work after just a few days off, it's a little bit more, I don't want to say separation anxiety, because I don't think it rises to that level, but I can tell that they sense there's a change. And I
Yeah.
feel like, that's always something that we don't fully grasp as pet owners is how much of a routine some pets love to have. Any little change, like they understand it, they feel it, they notice it, because like we're their whole world, right?
Yeah.
We go to work, we interact with so many different folks. Our world is big in a lot of cases. Their world in some cases can be very small, unless you're taking them everywhere and all that stuff. But yeah, I
Right.
feel like I can understand why some pets might be a little, anxious when their folks go back to work after not being in the office regularly like
Yeah.
that.
I mean, we think that the best approach to animal welfare in any community is a collaborative effort. And we try very hard not to duplicate the efforts of the city or other rescue groups or these foster-based rescue groups. We do adopt animals out. We'll probably always adopt animals out, but it has become such a smaller piece of what we do in order to provide this greater service to the Charlotte community.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the Charlotte community, I know that y'all are out in the community a lot. You have different events that you have, and you do have one that I'm seeing on your calendar that's coming up in August. Tell me about this Rescue Brew launch party.
Well, Rescue Brew is happening now, so if you haven't entered your dog or cat, you can still do that, I think, up until, is today June?
It is. It is
Oh
the
my
first day of
gosh.
June.
Oh, and today may be the day. Let me double check.
Okay, double check.
But you can enter your dog or cat into the Rescue Brew contest. It's a partnership with No Die Brewing, and every year they do a special release Rescue Brew that has the top dog and the top cat on each side
It's
of
their
the
photo.
can.
I remember.
Yeah, and
maybe
we have
last
an
year,
artist
yeah.
that does that image every year, and so it's a different style. It's very, very cool. And how you win is you enter your dog or cat, and then people vote for your dog or cat by entering $1.
Okay.
So whoever raises the most money gets their dog or cat on the can. The event, August 8th, is our kickoff party. So at that event, we'll unveil the Rescue Brew kitty and doggy, and their pet people will be there. The top 12, so top 6 dogs, top 6 cats, end up in a calendar. So we get to recognize them there. This year we're doing it a little differently. We usually do it on a weekday evening, but we are moving it to Saturday.
Okay.
So we will have vendors there and activities, and we hope that people show up because it's a really fun time.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I mean, probably just one of many ways that folks can connect with y'all. I know that via my work as an MC for your recent luncheon, found out all the different things that your volunteers do over at Humane Society, walking dogs, taking care of the kitties, working in your cat cafe situation where there's a kitty that's in the cafe, and I know at your pet shop where you folks can get leashes and different supplies. So tell us, I guess, maybe a bit about for folks who want to get involved with you, like in a volunteer basis.
Yeah, well, there's, of course, lots of ways you can get involved. As a volunteer, you can volunteer hands-on with the animals. Like you mentioned, we have everything from dog walking to helping in the clinic to being in the lobby, welcoming guests, helping with data. So there's all different types of ways that you can hands-on volunteer. You can also foster, which
Yeah.
you know a lot about, and that's a great way to help. We usually put our underage puppies, kittens in foster, or animals that may need a break. They've been there a while, or an animal we just want to see how they do in a home before we place them in the adoption program. So our fosters are just amazing. And the other way, of course, you can get involved is volunteering to serve on a committee. We have a gala in the fall in October, and we have a gala committee. A lot of people enjoy that. We also have some other committees you can be involved in. And then, of course, we're always looking for people to financially support the organization, and there's many ways to do that too. You can do that through a business sponsorship of an event. You can do that personally. You can be a monthly giver. That adds up significantly. But there's lots of ways to support the work that way too.
Well, we'll just remind folks who are interested in, just in general, animal welfare, that space, adopt, foster, spay, neuter, volunteer, advocate, donate.
Yes.
Those are all like the different, actions you can take within the sphere. Some seasons of your life might be better suited to others, depending on what's happening in your life, but there's always a way to help out.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to leave our viewers with here before we wrap things up?
First, thank you for having me.
Absolutely, yeah.
And second, I encourage people to come and visit the building. We have a huge education program. We're getting ready to kick off summer camp. We have 7 weeks of summer camp. It sells out. We have a wait list. So it's a great way to get your children involved.
Yeah.
And there's lots of different levels of education. We even have a career path for high school students. So that's a piece I haven't even mentioned that we were able to do in this new space that we couldn't do in our old building. But really just go to our website, see what we do, follow us on social media, come visit. We'd love to take you for a tour and just love your pet.
Yeah. It's a really pretty facility, folks. Very
Thank
pretty,
you.
yes.
Thank you.
Shelly, thank you so much for your time. And we'll chat again.
All righty.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in 2 minutes with more Live Impact News.